well, my name's Brett Galashewski. I'm the Midwest Field Manager for Turning Point Action. It is so awesome to be here with you guys. Look at all you freedom-loving conservatives all here in one room. Guys, take a minute to look around you guys, right? This is incredible. The assumption has always been that there are just no conservatives here in the Pittsburgh area. And here we are in the belly of the beast. Look at this incredible turnout. Awesome, awesome, awesome. We have some key integral members of the conservative movement from this state here today. Can I ask any elected official that's out there in the audience to please stand up here? Where are our elected officials? There we go. Let's give these guys a round of applause. Awesome. And we have a real treat here for you guys. Actually, the youngest elected official in the state of Pennsylvania is here today. Zach Helkias, all the way from Slatington, Lehigh County, all the way to the other side of the state. He's on the city council. He is the future of the conservative movement. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, guys, you know, there's a big difference between those who say that they want to be involved and those who actually do something about it, right? We all know those folks in our lives, those keyboard warriors who talk about getting involved, but there's never enough action with those folks to actually back it up. And by you guys being here this afternoon, not only are you talking the talk, you're walking the walk as well. It is a gorgeous Friday afternoon. You could be doing anything, and you're here because you care about the future of this state, and you care about our kids and their kids and their kids never have to grow up in a socialist country. But our work is not done yet, right? There are so many things that we could be doing now between now and November, right? We could be out knocking doors. Yep. We could be out registering to vote. If you are not registered to vote, we have the opportunity for you to do that today. Please stop by the tables over near the exits and do that. Get your friends to register to vote. Become precinct committeemen with your local county parties. This is how we change the game. This is how we change the future of the conservative movement. Our job is not done, and it's up to you guys, the grassroots warriors, to lead the future of this party. Now, it would be an honor to me to be able to lead you guys in the Pledge of Allegiance this afternoon. Can you guys join me with that? Awesome. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. We have an awesome program lined up for you guys. I'm going to bring Nolan Boos out here. He's going to lead us in prayer. Nolan? Thanks, guys.
How's everyone doing? So if I got everyone take their hats off, and I'll lead you in a word of prayer. Father God, I thank you so much for gathering us all here today, Lord. And Tyler surprised me with asking to lead this amazing group of warriors here in a word of prayer. And the story of Gideon popped into my heart, Lord. And I just pray that you will give us the spirit that you gave to Gideon, Lord, that Gideon was a weak, scared boy, God, and you put him on a path, Lord, to lead his army. And you gave him discernment, you gave him strength, you gave him courage, God. And I just pray that you will pour that spirit upon these people today, right now, Lord. This group here can curve the arc of history, God, and change politics in Pennsylvania for generations to come. I pray that this group of people here will not be the generation that allows the flame of liberty to die, but makes it brighter and brighter and brighter. I pray that you'll give them discernment to cut through the lies and hear the truth, Lord. I pray this in your precious name, Jesus, in your Son's name. Amen.
How we feeling, Pennsylvania? I said, how are we feeling, Pennsylvania? It's great to be here with you. Thank you for joining us. My name is Austin Smith. I'm the Enterprise Director of Turning Point Action. We're so blessed to be here with you guys. I heard that there's conservatives in Pennsylvania, but I don't know about that. Are there conservatives here or what? Are there constitutional conservatives here? Are there ultra-MAGA conservatives here? Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, at Turning Point Action, we're the sister 501c4 organization of Turning Point USA. How many of you are fans of Charlie Kirk, by the way? So what we do at Turning Point Action is that we fight to preserve America for another generation. We recruit precinct committeemen. How many of you here are precinct committeemen or precinct chairs in Pennsylvania? All right, that's okay, that's okay. We got a lot of work to do then. If you don't know what a precinct chair is or a precinct committeeman or a precinct delegate, it's the official representation of the Republican Party in your neighborhood. How many of you can get really upset with the Republican Party sometimes? That's why you're involved here, and that's what we do on a day-to-day basis at Turning Point Action. We recruit people to help lead their local Republican Party, to be active in their neighborhoods. Because if you win your neighborhood and your precinct, we will save this country. And so I'm going to challenge you guys with something today. After you hear from your next great governor, Mastriano, what about him? Do we like him a lot? Doug. Wow, you guys love him. Doug Ford, go. You guys are fired up. I love it. I love it. I love it. So did you know that there's also another really cool governor joining us today from down south? America's Governor Ron DeSantis. So today, after you hear from our future great governor of Pennsylvania and the great governor of the state of Florida, we want you to go over to that Turning Point Action table. Become a precinct chair, a precinct delegate, a precinct committeeman. Sign up with us. We want to go into the neighborhoods with you this election cycle and kick the Democrats back to space or wherever they're from and make sure we save Pennsylvania. At Turning Point Action, we love the grassroots. We're grassroots engaged. We believe that at the grassroots level is where we save this country. The battles for the heart and soul of America are not in Washington, D.C. or at our state capitals. They're right in our own neighborhoods. Each one of you here plays a crucial part in making sure that happens. That's what we do every single day at Turning Point Action. And we want to equip you to be able to do that. Back in Arizona, where we're from, how many of you are fans of Arizona and like our future governor, Kari Lake? So being a grassroots person for the last 7 years, working at Turning Point Action, after the debacle that was the Maricopa County election in 2020 and the COVID lockdowns, I'm a fifth-generation Arizonan. And I was afraid and upset with the way that my state was going. So as a grassroots person, knocking doors, registering voters, doing all the work necessary to elect constitutional conservatives in Arizona, I was doing that work. But I felt like the right people weren't getting elected or we weren't doing the right thing. So I decided to run for the state house in Arizona. And Doug Ducey, Rhino Doug Ducey in Arizona, he spent over $100,000 to prop up my opponent, and I beat him. And I beat them because we knocked over 10,000 doors. We got engaged in the precincts. That's how you guys are going to deliver victories like that. And you know who also is a grassroots guy and who's going to be the grassroots governor of America? Your next governor, Doug Mastriano. Get ready to hear that word a lot. He's going to be a grassroots governor. And we need him to help save your state and help save America and be the biggest pain in the butt Joe Biden has ever dealt with. Like I said, we're so excited to be here with you guys today. We put on one like this a few days ago in Arizona with our next governor, Kari Lake, and our next senator, Blake Masters. These events are free for us. We'd love to engage with the grassroots. We want to provide that type of experience and opportunity to mobilize and accelerate the conservative movement across the country. If you're watching on the live stream right now, there's a little QR code. You know, if you got time, chip in a few dollars here or there. If you guys are out in the crowd, go to tpaction.com/donate. We're going to head over to Ohio soon to help get J.D. Vance elected to the next senator from Ohio. But we need your guys' help to do it. So if you could chip in a few dollars here or there, I know Charlie would greatly appreciate it. Our staff would appreciate it because we got to keep this engine rolling, and we can only do it with small dollars here and there. If you can give $5, $10, $15, $20, that way we can come back to Pennsylvania and make sure Mastriano's governor when it comes time in November. So I want to leave you with this. Our country right now, I don't think is at a crossroads. I think we took a couple wrong turns a little ways back recently. But we have the most incredible ultra MAGA conservative movement in the history of our country. And right now is the time. Right now is the time for each one of you to become a precinct committeeman, to update your voter registration, to register 10 new voters in your neighborhood. When you take ownership of your precinct and your neighborhood and where you're from, you essentially own the country. And as patriots, Washington, D.C. doesn't own the country. Your state legislature doesn't own the country. You guys own the country, and you've got to go home and own your neighborhood because that's the only way that all of you are going to be Joe Biden's biggest pain in the butt. And I know it gets kind of cold up here sometimes, but did you know there's a guy from Florida who's got some pretty good weather on his way over here right now? How many of you love Governor Ron DeSantis? He's America's governor for a reason. He's going all across the country with us to make sure we elect America First, ultra MAGA, conservative Republicans to be your guys' chief executive. We've got a great plan, great show scheduled for you guys today. We're honored to be here. Come over to the Turning Point Action table today. Go to tpaction.com/donate. Thank you guys. God bless. We're going to save this country. We're going to save Pennsylvania. And the next generation of conservative leaders are going to be the best this country has ever seen. Thank you guys, and God bless.
All right, guys, I'm back. Okay, I have another call to action to you guys. And it's something that's near and dear to my heart. It's something that I've dedicated my life to over the last almost 3 years that I've been working for Turning Point Action, and that's getting young people involved in the grassroots, right? In order for the conservative movement to survive, it needs young people to step up, right? And not just join their local parties, but have a say in them, influence them, and help determine the future of it. Right? So on top of the many calls to action that you guys have had today, here's my one last call to action to all of you freedom-loving conservatives in this room. If you have young people in your lives that are just as passionate as you are, and they're not here, they're not even thinking about getting involved, they don't know that events like this are happening on a regular basis, it's up to you guys to be the voices to help those young people in your lives take that leap of faith and get on board. Zach Helkias gets it. He stepped up. He decided to run for local level office. He understands that young people are the key to influencing positive change at the local level and positive change for the future of this conservative movement. Right? It's up to you guys to get those young people in your lives involved. Talk to them. Talk to them about what's happening on their college campuses. Talk to them about getting involved in the grassroots. Open those doors for them. Right? Because ultimately, it's up to this generation, the millennials and Gen Z, to help further the conservative movement so our kids, their kids, and even their kids never have to grow up in a socialist country. That is the name of the game. That's what we're chasing, right? Right? And that's what your next governor in Pennsylvania is going to chase if you guys elect him. So get fired up. Your next governor, Doug Mastriano, is going to be out here any minute. You guys got to be fired up for him, though. You guys got to mean it. All right, guys, he'll be out here soon. Stand by.
Nobody's done it. Y'all don't on with me.
Just like fire burning up the way. If I could light the world up for just one day.
Any freedom-loving Americans in the house here? But it's been a time to try our souls. I'm looking across the past couple years here. And you remember when the schools shut down and they mashed up your kids, deprived your kids of athletic opportunities, scholarships, of their education. Remember your businesses, essential, non-essential. Non-essential? Only a Democrat can get away with failed policies of sending the sick in their homes, killing thousands, and get away with it. Not in my Pennsylvania, what do you say? Oh, yeah. Wow. Fantastic. We love you guys. Wow. Any freedom-loving Americans in the house here? Come on. Thank you for being here. What a great day in PA. And this is just the beginning. You ain't seen nothing yet. Come on. Well, thank you. This is a people's movement. We're going to take this state by storm on 8 November and change history. It's going to be amazing. Wow, we the people have been through hell the past couple years under Governor Wolf. And Dr. Levine. Anyone miss Levine? Anybody? Nobody? Wow, this extreme agenda by the Democrats, we're just sick and tired of it, and we say no more. Come on. But the Democrats and their acolytes in the media, they have nothing around, so they revert to name-calling, right? And we're not falling for it, right? Not anymore. We saw what they did to Donald Trump. We watched what they do with Governor DeSantis here. And so to distract us from their failed record and their failed policies and their destructive agenda for America, they have to ignore this dirty laundry list they have. It's like a lot of skeletons in the closet. And so we're going to remind the people of Pennsylvania, first off, of their rotten, dirty, stinking laundry list, and then tell you our vision for Pennsylvania. Oh, yeah. And one of the places they want to distract us with is women's rights. And I can think of no one better to talk about that but your next First Lady, Rebbe Mastriano.
Love you guys. You're getting me choked up, so I gotta try to keep my emotions under control. Thank you. I know it. I know it. Well, you know what? There's just no state like Pennsylvania. There's just no state like it.
Come on.
Well, what they don't want us to talk about, right, is the laundry list, and who can blame them? It's pretty, it's pretty rotten, and it really shows their true colors. So they do want to say that, they tried to say that Republicans don't believe in women's rights, but we know better. We know better. We 100% believe in protecting women's rights. First, we believe in protecting the woman's right to be born. Amen. We believe in the woman's right to have a say in her child's education. Yep. And a woman has a right to access baby formula as well, yes, woo! As well as affordable food for her family.
That's right.
A woman has a right to raise their child in a safe community. Where she can see that the government is enforcing the law and prosecuting crime. A woman has a right to live in a nation with a secure border. Build that wall. She has a right to the First Amendment. And as Republicans, we certainly believe that women have a right to the Second Amendment. That's right. And a woman has the right to compete in sports not dominated by a man. Woo. And as Republicans, we actually know how to define a woman, right? So be sure to let all that you come in contact with over the next few months know that Republicans do believe in women's rights, and give them the list, okay? Because this is what we believe in, and we're proud to share it. We're not ashamed of what we believe in. Thank you.
That's right. Wow. Isn't Rebby going to make a great first lady, huh? Going to be the best. They don't want to talk about grocery stores and empty shelves. They don't want to talk about inflation. They don't want to talk about gas prices. They don't want to talk about how hard it is for people like you and me to make ends meet. So when I distract us with name calling, a hater, this or that, it's just like, oh, shut up. That's right. And media, shame on you for amplifying and perpetuating hate. That's right. My opponent does not want to, he's been an attorney general, senior law enforcement official for 6 years, and he can't run on his record. He doesn't want to talk about, nor his party, nor the media, that he's weak on crime. They don't want to talk about crime going up 37% since he's been the attorney general. This guy's a failure. We need to fire him. That's right. They don't want to talk about the mostly peaceful protests in the Summer of Love back in 2020. That's right. The looting, the cities being burned down, the laws they refuse to enforce. They don't want to talk about the crime they didn't prosecute. They don't want to talk about the criminals they let loose. Even murderers walking the streets. They don't want to talk about how they demonize the beautiful men and women in blue. That's right. You know things are bad in Pennsylvania when Doug Mastriano sounds more like a feminist on the floor of the Senate than a Democrat. It's pretty bad. There they are defending male domination of female sports, and they don't want to talk about how Josh Shapiro cheered when Governor Wolf vetoed that legislation to protect women's sports. They don't want to talk about rolling back the clock on 50 years of women achievements in athletics with Title IX. That's right. They don't want to talk about how they want to deem any parent who has a strong opinion about their child's education as domestic terrorists. Yep. Yep. Strange times we live in. They don't want to talk about the shutdown. They want you to forget about the COVID mandates, the forced masking of your kids. They don't want to talk about how Josh Shapiro sued last year to keep your kids masked up. Yep, he did. He did. After the Senate held those outstanding hearings and found out there was, follow the science, we're missing science in masking the kids, and Josh Shapiro sued to keep your kids muzzled up. He doesn't want to talk about how last year he sued to keep your businesses shut down. The guy's a loser. Yep. Another extremely wealthy and titled rich kid who grew up in one of the most privileged schools and sending his kids to schools that are costing about $40,000 a kid. So he believes in school choice for himself, but not for you. What do you think? They don't want to talk about Levine. I really don't either. Admiral now, Woman of the Year. They call us extreme. Are you kidding me? They don't want to talk about Levine and that ridiculous policy of sending the sick back into homes. And then finding out it was a bad idea. We have 150 years of germ theory by Louis Pasteur, 1870s, rolled back. And Levine found out it was a bad idea and snuck mom out, but your moms are left to die alone. They don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about how Josh Shapiro, before one vote was counted, predicted when all the votes were counted that Joe Biden would be the president. That's a problem. They don't want to talk about how they did everything they could to blunt our questions into voting integrity. And so, come on. So I'm asking you what to do here in my 90 seconds remaining. Is that don't go on defense. Remind the people of Pennsylvania what Josh Shapiro and his daddy Wolf did. Yep. On day one, okay, now we've identified the problem, the solution. Your solution is Governor Mastriano serving you here in Pennsylvania. That's right. Come on, we're going to do it. Look at this crowd out here. That's right. Beautiful. Oh, yeah. We love you. Let me wrap it up here. On day one, we're out of the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. On day one, I'll rescind every regulation on the energy sector, and we will drill in Pennsylvania. Oh, yeah. We're going to do it. On day one, all executive orders and mandates and restrictions that destroy businesses and infringe upon your freedoms will be over. I'll be rolling back over 1/3 of the regulations in the first 100 days of my administration. I will hold state officials accountable for enforcing law and prosecuting crime. That's right. I will have the backs of our beautiful law enforcement. Pennsylvania will not be host to illegal immigrants anymore. That's right. And when those ghost flights show up in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania State Police will greet them and escort them to Joe Biden's house in Delaware. On day one, critical race theory and whatever else they're calling it is over. That's right. It's done. I'll be working with the great people in the House and Senate for school choice, and we're going to fight like hell. We will follow the science. No more jabs for job requirements in Pennsylvania. On day one, follow the science. No more men on the girls' teams. Come on. It's not that hard. On day one, you can only use the bathroom of your anatomy, not your preference. And finally, we'll restore confidence and integrity to our elections. Rebbe and I are so thankful for you guys. Go to dougforgov.com. But before I introduce the excellent governor of Florida, we have one presentation here.
Hi, my name is Courtney Reed, and I was a photographer for President Donald Trump's campaign and now for Doug Mastriano. And the instant I met this man, I knew it was a special moment for the state of Pennsylvania because he is a special man. So these will be available for prints, and all of the proceeds go towards Doug's campaign, so consider getting one as a keepsake to cherish this special moment in history. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Very talented.
Wow. It is my distinct honor and privilege to introduce to you what a governor should be. A fighter from the United States Navy, a descendant of Pennsylvania, the best governor in the United States of America, Governor Ron DeSantis from Florida.
Ron DeSantis has done a fantastic job throughout this crisis. It has terrified the left.
4 bills were signed by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in just a month's time.
Ron DeSantis has done a fantastic job, and the liberals and the leftist media are now going to start attacking him like crazy.
I know corporate media thinks that they can just run over people. You ain't running over this governor. I'm punching back. But let me tell you this. If you're trying to restrict people, impose mandates, if you're trying to ruin their jobs and their livelihoods and their small business, if you are trying to lock people down, I am standing in your way. I'm standing for the people of Florida.
Our governor is red, white, and blue. Down in sweet Florida, he's shooting us straight, telling us the truth. Yeah, that's right.
Hello, Western Pennsylvania. Well, it's so good to be here, especially because some of you will end up being residents of Florida. Just the way it goes. If you threw a dart at the map of Florida, you would run into some yinzers very quickly down there. And just so everybody knows, my family, my father is from Aliquippa. Now, I'm a Florida native. My parents had already moved down to Florida by the time I was born, but I was born in the late 1970s, which for people that are Steeler fans, remember the 1970s as a pretty good decade. So, not a lot of people necessarily know. I mean, that's how, I came in born in Florida, but with family from Western PA. So if you think about, where's the thing? So a lot of people know me from, that's me taking on 60 Minutes and fighting back against the media. We don't accept the narratives, we fight back, and we win, and it's important. So a lot of people know that. Some other people that know a little bit more about me know some of my background in the military. Some people also know really from starting in Little League, where we made it to Williamsport, all the way through college, playing baseball, all that stuff. I think a lot of people do know a lot of that stuff if you think. Not a lot of people know, though. I'm born in the late 70s to a Steeler fan, so as a little baby, there's actually pictures of me in the Steelers attire. And I think they had just won the Super Bowl probably then. So in any event, it's really great to be here, and I'm especially happy because this November, we are going to win in the state of Pennsylvania. We are going to elect Doug Mastriano to be the governor of Pennsylvania. And we will do that because Pennsylvania needs somebody to stand up against violent crime, to stand up and stand against mandates and restrictions. You need a governor who's willing to stand up to Biden's failed policies. So you have these races, there's primaries, people support one candidate or another, and that's fine. But once that's over, it's important that all Republicans get on board and support our governor candidate. And that means not just Republican voters, it means Republican organizations in Pennsylvania and throughout the country need to be invested in this race. They need to devote resources to this race. Look, I come from what has been known as the most famous swing state in the country. Now, when I got elected governor, we had 300,000 more Democrats than we did Republicans. Since I've been governor, we've changed that. We now have 232,000 more Republicans than Democrats. So it may be the case. It may be the case that Pennsylvania is now the most important swing state in the country because we've gotten redder in Florida, but these are important races and we need everyone on board. And the same thing, with the Senate race. I think people need to support Dr. Oz for the Senate. It's very important. Very important not to send a very hardened leftist to the Senate. But I'll tell you this, one thing about these governor's races is, as a governor, you're not just electing some politician like you would in some of these other offices. And not that there's anything wrong with those other offices, but a governor worth his salt is going to be somebody who's capable of being a leader. And there's really no substitute for that. You can hide in a Congress, one of 435. The buck doesn't stop with you. You can vote. You don't necessarily have to always be in the spotlight if you don't want to. Well, when you're the governor, the buck stops with you. And you've got to be willing to lead, and you've got to be willing to stand up for people in your state. And when I got elected governor, what I did was immediately say, I am not doing any polling as governor. I'm not going to lead based on polls. I'm going to lead based off conviction. I'm going to lead based off doing what's right. And if you think about it, I can take a poll of this room right now, but you know, that doesn't really tell me what I need to know in any event. That just tells me some static analysis of how you may view a certain issue. What it doesn't tell me is if I'm willing to set out a vision, if I'm willing to execute on that vision and I deliver good results, then what are the results going to be? And the fact of the matter is, if you lead and you lead with strength and courage and you deliver results, the people will be with you. And that's what we've shown in Florida. The other thing a governor can do that is different from some other offices, and this is what we've done in Florida, you know, we didn't just sit idly by hoping that issues didn't come on our desk. We went on offense in the state of Florida. We made sure that we were getting in front of key issues and delivering victories for the state of Florida. And look, what's the result? Just this last July, even with everything that Biden is throwing at us in terms of higher energy prices, inflation, all these things, Florida alone added over 70,000 private sector jobs in the month of July. We have more people employed in the state of Florida than we did pre-COVID, and there's a lot of states that have not recovered back then. And our unemployment rate now is less than it was prior to the onset of COVID. And of course, we do all of that with no state income tax. But even with no state income tax, Florida just ended its most recent fiscal year with the largest budget surplus in the history of our state. Represented 20% of the budget was surplus. And none of that would have been possible had we allowed our state to descend into some type of Faucian dystopia where people's freedoms were curtailed and their livelihoods were destroyed. No, we saw how people in places like Pennsylvania were locking people down. And in Florida, we lifted people up. We made sure that people's rights were protected, their jobs were preserved, small businesses could operate, and that every single kid in the state of Florida would be able to go to be in school in person 5 days a week. And it was not popular to take those positions when we did. We had so much corporate media smearing the left going against us. Even some of these establishment Republicans were saying, oh, you can't do that because we were bucking Fauci. We were not following some of these bureaucrats who had no regard for your freedom, who had no regard for the struggles that people were going through due to their policies. And then what they said was, don't leave your house. But then when they wanted to go out and do the Floyd protests and the riots, then they said that was okay. So these people were not someone that you wanted to be listening to. You needed to follow the data yourself, and that's what we did. We weren't going to subcontract out leadership to a bunch of health bureaucrats. We looked at the whole picture, and I'll tell you, we took flack, we took arrows, but I told myself during that whole time, my job as governor is to protect the jobs of the people that I represent. And if protecting their job means it doesn't work out me for politically and somehow it costs me mine, then so be it. That's the price of leadership. You don't lead by trying to cover your own hide. We're also proud in the state of Florida that we put our students and young people first. We were not going to let them be locked out of school for ends on end like they did in California and these other places. We banned school districts from force masking these young kids in school. And I must say, I see now Philadelphia is forcing masks on students. And they said that they were telling me that Pittsburgh may do that too. There is no justification for muzzling students for 8 hours a day. It is wrong, and it has no place in this state or any state in these United States. We need to look out for their best interests and their well-being and their education. We also need to make sure that our societies are free and not submit to a biomedical security state. And to that end, in the state of Florida, we were one of the first states in the country to ban vaccine passports in our state. You should be able to go to a movie theater or go to a restaurant without having to cough up your medical papers. And you know what? Because we did that and because we made sure our state was free in 2021, Florida set a record for domestic tourism. Never have we seen anything like that in our state. We also fought back on the Biden administration and some big corporations when they were trying to impose employment vax mandates. In the state of Florida, we called a special session of the legislature to provide protections for all Floridians because our policy is very simple. No Floridian should have to choose between a job they need and a shot they don't want. And even the CDC is backhandedly acknowledging that the shots aren't preventing people from getting infected. There has never been a basis to mandate this forcibly on anybody, and yet they still cling to some of these outdated policies. Every single mandate in this country needs to be reversed today. And I think if someone's been forced to do this, if they have an adverse reaction, they should be able to sue and be able to get damages. So being the free state of Florida has caused a lot of people to want to come visit, live there. But I'll tell you, one of the things that has caused so many people to want to move into Florida over the last few years is that we are unabashedly a law and order state. We saw some of the worst rioting we've ever seen in this country 2 years ago, burning down cities like Minneapolis, seeing all kind of destruction in New York and these other places. Well, in Florida, I said, that is not going to fly. We immediately called out the National Guard. We had state law enforcement ready. We weren't going to let the state burn to the ground. We also understood that this is something that is likely going to continue in our society, and so we passed legislation banning local governments from defunding the police in the state of Florida. We also ensured that people would be held accountable. If you are out there rioting in a place like Portland, they will arrest you, they'll take your mugshot, they slap you on the wrist, they put you right back on the street to do it again. And in Florida, we said, no, if you're engaging in rioting or looting or mob violence, you're not getting the slap on the wrist, you're getting the inside of a jail cell. And as harmful as slashing funding for law enforcement has been, as harmful as attacking law enforcement has been politically, I can tell you probably equal damage has been done through these prosecutors who refuse to enforce the law. Funded by people like George Soros. And you see the results of that right here on the other side of Pennsylvania with Philadelphia, almost like a third world country with how much crime is happening there, with a prosecutor who's decided he's going to pick and choose which laws he's going to enforce. And the tragedy of it is this. Philadelphia is where the Declaration of Independence was signed. Philadelphia is where our Constitution is created. We need better for that important city than what we're getting right now. I can tell you this, in Florida, when we recently had a prosecutor, yes, backed by Soros, who said he's going to decide which laws he's going to enforce and which laws he's not going to enforce, we responded to that and we removed him from his position. So Doug Mastriano will be a law and order governor, and this needs to be a law and order state. We also need somebody as governor here who's going to be tough on illegal immigration. And that means he needs to get the legislature to pass and he can sign a ban on sanctuary cities in the state of Pennsylvania. We did that in Florida. Because you see what Biden's doing at the border, this is an intentional policy. He came into office, he reversed all of President Trump's policies, he wanted to have more illegal immigration, and what has the result been? Record human trafficking, record sex trafficking, and record amounts of fentanyl coming into our country. The leading cause of death for people 18 to 45 right now in these United States is fentanyl overdose. That would not be happening if our border was secure. And Biden will not. He refuses to put up a wall at the southern border, but he's spending $500,000 to put up a wall around his beach house in Delaware. But what his policy does, it shows contempt for every single person in this room and everybody throughout our country. He doesn't give a damn that our communities are being ravaged by fentanyl. He doesn't give a damn that you have criminal aliens pouring into our country. He's just sitting back and letting it happen. Well, we need to make sure we're fighting back at the state level. You know, these places that consider themselves sanctuary jurisdictions like D.C. and New York, they don't like when the red states are sending illegal aliens to their communities. And Florida, we're happy, we're proud, we're happy to help out in any of that when we can, including not just send to New York and D.C., you need to be sending to Delaware as well. So I think Biden's been weak on our borders. I also think he's been weak against our number one adversary, the Communist Party of China. He's been soft on China pretty much his whole career, supported things like giving him most favored nation trade status, putting him in the WTO. They've taken so much industry from our country, and now as everything is made in China, when COVID hit, every single thing we needed for our hospitals was made in China. That is not good for our national security, and that's not the way you run a country. And so we need to be serious about combating the influence of the CCP here in our country. I can tell you in Florida, we've signed legislation banning things like Confucius Institutes from our universities. We've also been a leader in ensuring election integrity in the state of Florida. When I became governor, one of the first things I did was accept the resignation of Brenda Snipes, who was the supervisor of election down in Broward County. We removed the Palm Beach County supervisor of elections. And when COVID hit, we refused to allow any unconstitutional changes to election procedure. We followed the law. The result was, while it took states like Pennsylvania days and even weeks to count the ballots, Florida had all of its vote, 99% of its vote counted by midnight on election night, 11 million votes. And people actually, after the election, looked back and said, man, why can't every state do it like Florida? I can tell you, they didn't used to say that about Florida. But here's the thing. We understood we had a lot of work to do as well. So since the 2020 election, I've signed legislation making ballot harvesting a felony. We've eliminated drop boxes in the state of Florida. We've strengthened voter ID requirements, and maybe most importantly, we have banned Zuckerbucks in the state of Florida. We're not going to let hundreds of millions of dollars from big tech oligarchs be used to commandeer the machinery of our elections. It is corrupt as hell, and it is wrong, and it is now illegal in the state of Florida. And as important as those reforms were, they don't amount to much unless you actually enforce the law. And so this past legislative session I signed, and it became live on just July 1st, we established the first of its kind election integrity unit in state government whose job is to prosecute voter fraud. Just yesterday, we were able to announce our first 20 prosecutions across the state 6 weeks after the office started, and we're going to continue to do it. If you're voting illegally, we're going to hold you accountable. If you're double voting, we're going to hold you accountable. If you're ballot harvesting, we are going to hold you accountable. And you guys can have all that happen here in Pennsylvania if you elect Doug to the governorship. You can do it. So we're proud of what we've done on election integrity, but I'll tell you, there's maybe no issue that we've led more strongly on in drawing a big fat line in the sand to say that the people of Florida believe that the purpose of our school system should be to educate our kids, not to indoctrinate our kids. And to that end, we've done things like ban critical race theory in our K through 12 schools. We're not going to teach kids to hate our country or to hate each other. We're going to teach real history. We're going to teach them the truth. We're not going to let them impose their ideological agenda on our youth. We've also established a big initiative to promote American civics in our schools. We have a responsibility to make sure that the students that come out of our school system understand what it means to be an American. They need to understand that our rights come from God, not from the government. They need to understand about our Constitution. They need to understand about the principles that make us unique. They need to understand why people have fought and died to protect our freedom and our way of life. And so not only do we do that, but we also show now what's the other side of freedom. What does that look like? And so I've signed legislation in Florida establishing November 7th as a day to learn and remember about victims of communism and the 100 million people who were killed by communist regimes in the 20th century alone. Every school kid will get instruction in understanding the horrors of communism. And you know, we win the Cold War and people think it's gone, but you see it all around in different pockets and it just won't go away. So we need to be honest about what that means and how that has destroyed so many societies over the last 120 years. And so we are being honest about that, and our kids are better off for it. We also believe that parents have a right to send their kids to elementary school without having woke gender ideology shoved down their throat. We do not allow schools to be instructing kids that, hey, you're 7 years old, you may have been born a boy, but maybe you're really a girl. They are doing that in places around this country, and it is wrong, and we are not going to stand for it in the state of Florida. Now, when we did legislation to have those protections in place, there were some people that didn't like that. The parents in Florida really liked it, but the media didn't like it. And there was a company that people may have heard of in Orlando that didn't like it, actually based in California, but big spot in Orlando. But you know, I took an oath to support and defend the people of my state, not to subcontract out my leadership to a California-based corporation. We were not going to bend on this. We were not going to break. We stood our ground. We stood for what was right. And I didn't care what some big woke corporation said. But we also had to face the reality that you had a company like Disney that was not just opposed to the bill. After I signed the bill, they said, it's our mission to see that it's repealed. Parents' rights, wanting to repeal. A company catering to parents with young children that they wanted to basically go on offense against the policy of the state of Florida. Now, you know, you have a right to do that. I think some of these woke corporations are not doing best by their shareholders and all that, and I don't think it's good business, but some people want to do it, fine. But you don't have a right to force me or my citizens to subsidize your woke activism. And the fact of the matter is, Disney, since the 1960s, had gotten more subsidies from Florida than any company in the history of our state, and maybe in the history of our country. When you think about what they've had their own government since the 1960s that they control. They've been exempt from laws, and they've gotten massive tax breaks. So we said, no, you're free to indulge in that type of views and ideology, but that's not consistent with our values in the state of Florida. So we took action, and now, because of what we did, Disney's not going to have its own government anymore. They're going to live under the same laws as everybody else, and they will pay their fair share of taxes in the state of Florida. But it raises this issue of why are they trying to inject this gender ideology into all these institutions? You know, last year I signed legislation protecting women's sports in the state of Florida. You'll have people, you see this swimmer from Penn, 3 years on the men's team and then wins the women's championship? It's totally unfair. It's not based in science, it's based in ideology. So we made sure that in Florida, that women's sports had integrity and fairness, and that we were standing by opportunities for our girls and our women athletes. And that should be true all over the country. And we've also been forced to stand up, and I think this is really disturbing that this is going on, but in Florida, we've taken on what they're calling, and this is a big euphemism, gender-affirming care for minors. Now, this is not counseling or things like that. This is things like giving people that are 12, 13, 14 puberty blockers. It's giving people surgeries where you're chopping off private parts. That is wrong. That is not based on anything but ideology. And in the state of Florida, we have put a stop to it. We're not going to let them disfigure these kids. And these doctors that have done this should be able to be sued for any damage that they cause young people. These are impressionable kids. This is not the right thing to do. And it's sad that we have to do it, but nevertheless, I think the reason why you see all this stuff is because this woke ideology is a really destructive mind virus. And what it's done is it is infecting different institutions in our society, you know, the medical establishment. That's why they're doing these sex changes on the minors, or they want to do it. You see it in education. You see it in these different things. It's a very oppressive ideology. It's totally divorced from reality. And I think in Florida, and we need this to be true in Pennsylvania, around the country, We can't just stand idly by while woke ideology ravages every institution in our society. We must fight the woke in our schools. We must fight the woke in our businesses. We must fight the woke in government agencies. We can never, ever surrender to woke ideology. And I'll tell you this, the state of Florida is where woke goes to die. Now, states like Florida have really been the vanguard of protecting people from the poor policies of the Biden administration. And I think if you have a governor here working with your legislature, that'll be some of the best protection you can have, to have somebody like Doug Mastriano fighting back for you. And if you think about Biden, honestly, it's sad when you're watching some of this stuff. I mean, I just think back to some of the other presidents we have. You know, think about like John Kennedy. You think, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. You think about President Reagan, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. When I think of Biden, I think of him staring like a deer in the headlights at the teleprompter. End of quote, repeat the line. So he's been a failed leader. He doesn't have the aptitude to lead. But I'll tell you this, he ran claiming he was going to be a uniter, and he has been the most divisive president of my lifetime. I mean, this is a guy that wanted people to be fired from their jobs based on a COVID shot. He has imposed intolerable burdens on this country, and he is failing the American people every day. And who else is up there with him running the show? Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi is proof positive that we need something I've advocated for a long time. We need term limits for members of Congress. Now, they've just concocted this thing that they're calling the Inflation Reduction Act. And first of all, that shows you what they think of you. That is insulting our intelligence that you're calling it the Inflation Reduction Act. What are they doing? Obviously, they're not doing anything to stop inflation. They're spending a lot more money that we don't have. But what are they doing? They are unleashing 87,000 new IRS agents which shows contempt for the American people. That is absolutely going to hit people who are small business folks, contractors, handyman, you name it, because a billionaire has lawyers, accountants, all that stuff. The small people, they can't handle these audits, and so they're going to turn the screws on people they don't like. That's what they're going to do with those IRS agents, and I think every member of Congress who voted for that bill should have to face annual audits from the IRS. But the Inflation Reduction Act, so-called, I think is an example of how these ruling leftist elites in our country, they consider us to be subjects to be ruled over. They don't consider us to be citizens on equal footing with them. They think we should bow down to their ideology and that we should just shut up about what we think is right for this country. Think about what they wanted to do if they had just won a couple more Senate races after 2020. They wanted to pack the U.S. Supreme Court. They wanted to abolish the Electoral College. They wanted to make D.C. a state so they'd have 2 radical Democrat senators for life in a 95% Democrat jurisdiction. And they wanted to pass federal legislation to nullify voter ID all across the country. Now, say what you want about that agenda. I obviously don't think it's good, but no one can dispute that is not an agenda that is trying to answer the concerns of the average American. There aren't people sitting around their dinner table, families just wondering, man, if we could only make D.C. a state, we'd be better off. If only the federal government would abolish voter ID, then all would be well in the world. No, that is an agenda where they're trying to make the conservative half of the country second-class citizens. They want to use their power and wield that over us. You see it with what they're doing to try to delegitimize our history. They're taking down statues of Thomas Jefferson. They're taking George Washington's name off of schools. They're trying to promote fake history so that our founding fathers and our Constitution are effectively delegitimized. You look at what the corporate media does to advance these phony narratives. They know Biden's not doing a good job, so what do they try to do? They try to concoct a blizzard of lies to try to get people to not recognize the failures of his leadership. And they do it day after day, and they lie day after day. And what they're going to be, you see it right now, what they're doing in Pennsylvania. They're trying to smear Doug. They're trying to smear other people. They're going to put out a lot of fake polls over the next 2 months. You know, CNN had a poll when I was running saying I was going to lose by 12 when I was running in 2018. So that's just what's going to happen. That's the name of the game. So just be prepared for it. Also be prepared for them to enlist big tech in their quest to censor people down the stretch in this election. They did it in 2020, and they are going to try to do it again. So we just need to understand that the stakes are high. We need to understand that in times like these, yes, you need to be right on the issues, but there really is no substitute for courage. You've got to have backbone. You've got to have some spine. You got to be willing to demonstrate that courage under fire when it's not easy. Show some courage by taking on the woke mob. Show some courage by fighting things like cancel culture. Show courage by standing in the way of the Biden administration. That's what is called for right now. And I think about why we're in this fight, why we should want to go out. And it's not just guys like me that get attacked. Yeah, look, I get attacked when I roll out of bed every morning. I'm used to it. No big deal. But, you now have, if a parent goes to a school board meeting, Merrick Garland wanted to send the FBI after the parent. You have other people that are running for school board. They get smeared. That's just the cost of being engaged and standing for the truth right now in our country. But I think it's worth it. And you know what? I think we have no choice but to do it. I think we owe an obligation to people that have fought for us to be able to be a free country. And I'm reminded, one of the things I used to do when I served a short time in the Congress, I've recovered from that experience and never drank the Kool-Aid, but you'd fly into Reagan Airport I'd fly in from Florida, and there was some times where the flight pattern would take you just parallel to the National Mall. So if you looked out the left side of the plane, you saw sweeping views of the Lincoln Memorial, memorials to Thomas Jefferson, MLK, the Washington Monument, and then you'd see a majestic view of the U.S. Capitol building. And people, particularly tourists, would look, and it was really, really neat because those are symbols of the great ideas and principles that have made this country what we've become. But what I soon figured out was the best monuments were not the ones that you saw in the National Mall if you looked out the left side of the plane. So if you looked out the right side of the plane, you could look across the Potomac River into Northern Virginia, and what you would see is much smaller monuments, much less majestic, very orderly, rolling across the hills in a place called Arlington National Cemetery. And the fact of the matter is, you can have the best ideas in the world, you can have the best principles in the world, but if you don't have people that are willing to stand up, put that uniform on, and give their life in service to those ideals, then they ain't going to amount to very much. So One of the things that motivates me is, yes, my wife and I, we've got a 5, a 4, and a 2-year-old at home. I know many of you have kids and grandkids, and you're very concerned about what kind of a country they're going to be left. And we are too. But I can tell you one of the things that also motivates me is that we owe the people in Arlington Cemetery and people who have fought for us to not just let this country go down the tubes. Ronald Reagan said freedom is 1 generation away from extinction. It's not something that's passed along through the bloodstream. It requires people like us, particularly when it's not easy, to stand up and be counted. So my message to you is very simple. We've got a lot of work to do in Pennsylvania and Florida and all throughout this country over the next, now less than 3 months away. So put on the full armor of God. Take a stand against the left's schemes. Stand your ground. Stand firm. Don't back down. We can do this. I'm going to be working to keep the state of Florida free, and you guys have an opportunity to make Pennsylvania free. Let's get it done. Thank you so much. God bless. Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Down in sweet Florida, he's shooting us straight, telling us the truth. Yeah, that's right. You can take it to the bank. He don't care what Brandon thinks at the White House.